All right. So good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Glazier. I'm the CEO here at Defy Ventures, and we couldn't be more excited to be having this virtual book launch for Ed. And we are here, of course, to talk about this amazing book, which is blending into my virtual background. There we go. I've been with Defy for about 3 years, and I'm coming to you live from Los Angeles, California. We've got with us our executive director, Paul Lamb, and of course, Ed Kressy. I'll have them introduce themselves, but we're really excited to have everybody. Thank you all for joining us today. Just to give you a quick overview of how we're gonna do this. So Ed's gonna lead off with some info, with a little presentation. We'll ask him a couple questions. He'll do a little bit of reading. And then after Ed's gonna read a couple of passages, we'll ask him a few questions. And then we'll open it up for audience participation. So at that point, when we do, what we're gonna do is invite the audience members to actually submit questions in the chat. And if we select your question, then we're gonna actually promote you live to ask your question live. So we'll actually see you live to ask that question to Ed directly, so we can answer the question to you. And then we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and promote panelists up and put them back as we have questions. Just for everybody's notice, this is being recorded. So if we do pick you to ask your question, please do note that that will be on the recording. With that, I'm gonna let Paul introduce himself, and then he can pass it on to Ed.
Hey everybody, Paul Lamb. I'm the executive director for Defy Northern California. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Ed over the last 4 or 5 months, and even in that short time, consider him to be a brother, a comrade in arms, just an amazing writer and a wonderful human being. So I'm blessed to be here today to hear more about your story, Ed. But I should say we have one thing in common. One important thing in common is we're both from Massachusetts. We grew up about half an hour from each other, even though we didn't know each other. And if I'm not mistaken, Ed, I think my high school football team kicked the butt of your high school team pretty much from the beginning of time. So you can confirm or deny that. Off to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Paul. Hello, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Well, first tell us who you are and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, of course. I'm Ed Kressy. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking time out of your day. Hope that you are all staying safe and healthy in these challenging times. Thank you so much to Defy Ventures for your incredible work and for the opportunity to do this virtual book launch.
All right, well, take it away. I know you got a little presentation you want to start off with.
I do. Okay, folks, what you're going to hear is about a 5 to 6 minute story of how I overcame some tremendously challenging circumstances. And we're going to finish up with an offer of how I can potentially help you overcome obstacles in your own life. It's a story about achieving a dream. When I was a kid, I had a dream. My dream was to become a writer. Now, I was a bullied kid. I was an ostracized kid. Some of the first ways I felt like I was bringing value to the world around me were in school, when the English teacher would call me up to the front of the room to read aloud a story that I had written. Unfortunately, when I turned 14, I found an easier, quicker way to feel like a Superman. Drinking. I got drunk for the first time at my aunt's wedding. When I was 16 years old, I became a very heavy drinker. I had a lot of opportunities in life. I had the chance to attend college when I was 17. In my freshman year, I graduated from heavy drinking to heavy drug taking. Cocaine, marijuana, ecstasy, a host of other intoxicants. Still, other opportunities came my way. I had a career with a firm that went on to become the #1 best company in America to work for, according to Fortune magazine. Genentech treated me very well for the 5 years that I was there. I had a hobby. I was an amateur kickboxer. Here I am. I got the opportunity to train with some of the professionals in Bangkok. Still, the college, the Genentech, the kickboxing, none of it made up for the fact that I failed to pursue my dream of becoming a writer. The negativity I felt towards myself for failing to go after my dream, I buried under an avalanche of drugs. You'll see the person sitting next to me here. I'm wearing the blue shirt. This is a person, Omar. He was my friend and my roommate while I was staying in Bangkok. What happened was, after the wheels of my plane touched down in San Francisco from my trip to Bangkok, I started using meth every day. I sank into methamphetamine psychosis, and I came to believe that my friend Omar from Bangkok was this guy, one of the 9/11 hijackers. My methamphetamine psychosis got worse and worse. I became convinced of a vast FBI conspiracy with me at its nexus. I would rip apart my electronics and smash holes in my drywall looking for hidden FBI cameras and listening devices. I would live in terror of invisible stalkers. I would hear disembodied voices threatening to kidnap me and torture me to death. My life went on like this for years. In 2005, at one of my lowest points, I was arrested attempting to break into my own relative's home to steal for money for methamphetamine. My life consists of things like going for months without showering or brushing my teeth, toting a loaded .357 pistol as protection against people I thought were after me. I threw away my home, my career, all my wonderful relationships, even my beloved dog. Fortunately, in 2007, I found the strength to get clean from meth for good. What I discovered, among other things, was that just because you're done with drugs doesn't mean drugs are done with you. I continued to experience what many people would label as a schizophrenia-like condition. And even to this very day, I hear disembodied voices. I will entertain beliefs of government interest in my life. I, even to this day, struggle with crushing anxiety and depression. Nevertheless, I've learned to pursue a path of spirituality, self-improvement, and service to others. This is because amazing people came into my life and showed me this path. I found my way to Defy Ventures. We're going to talk more about Defy, but here I am with an incredible man, Curtis Norris, one of my fellow Defy program participants. Thanks to Defy and many others, I was able to improve myself. I was able to overcome my fears. I overcame a fear of law enforcement. This is me with a cop who arrested me the first time. She and I became friends. She helped me turn my life around and get my life back on track. I overcame my fear of physical danger stemming back to when I was a bullied kid. I became a self-defense instructor. I volunteered for the Boys and Girls Clubs, teaching kids to improve themselves too. I overcame my fear of public speaking. Here I am at a Defy Ventures event for Google, giving a short talk. And incredibly, in 2019, I found myself receiving one of the FBI's highest awards for community service. This was taken in Washington, D.C. about a year ago. I'm so grateful to the Bureau for giving me a second chance, and much to the FBI's credit, a big reason why I received this Community Leadership Award is because of my work with Defy Ventures. And of course, we're here today because I've achieved my dream. I've published a book. Now, with what's happening in the United States with our current events today, I just wanted to take a moment to say that of all the wonderful things that Defy and others have taught me, some of the most important are these. That of all the help I received to turn my life around, some of the most meaningful came from persons in law enforcement and from persons who are or were incarcerated. You know, I learned that behind bars and behind badges beat the hearts of human beings. By no means do I intend a blanket endorsement of all things law enforcement, any more than I would endorse everything that's been done by every person who's ever been incarcerated. The point is, thanks to Defy and thanks to many others, many of whom are on this call right now, I've learned that society benefits when we look past uniforms, whether worn by prisoners or by police. We all get better when we see the human beings behind the uniforms. Thanks to what I learned about spirituality, self-improvement, service to others, I got from here to here, to here, and even to here. My book became #1 in its Amazon category. So I'm going to model some behavior at Defy. They teach us never to let an audience go without a sales pitch. So I'm also a coach. If you have always wanted, especially during these times of quarantine, if you've wanted a schizophrenic, methamphetamine addicted, formerly incarcerated coach, now you have your opportunity. But in all seriousness, you know, I've learned how to overcome tremendous obstacles in my life. You face obstacles now. You face fear, you face anxiety, you face challenges, perhaps never like any challenges you've seen in your life. I'm here to help you get past your challenges and get on your way to achieving your dream. Regardless of any of that, we're going to conclude with one thing which I feel is the most important thing. If you or your loved one is struggling with addiction, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I am here for you. I will help you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
So, you know, I finished this book actually earlier this week. And for me, one of the things I really loved about it was this window into your brain. I wonder for you, what was it like to write this book? I know writing a book is a huge achievement. I mean, it felt cathartic for me to read it. I wonder for you, what was it like to write this book? Well, you know, was it a difficult experience? Was it, you know, was it cathartic for you? How was it to do that? How long did it take you? You know, tell us a little bit about that.
It was absolutely a cathartic experience. I think Ernest Hemingway said that writing is easy. You just sit in front of a keyboard and bleed. Right. To me, and I by no means do I mean to compare myself to Ernest Hemingway, yet I learned so much about myself. I learned that I was capable of pursuing my dream. I learned that I was capable of overcoming challenges. I was capable of overcoming obstacles, many that I placed upon myself. I was able to transform my poor decisions, of which I made many in the past. In the past, I hurt myself, but I hurt others. I hurt my friends and my family even more. Through writing this book, I was able to take all of that negativity and transform it into something good, something that brings a little bit of value to the world, the way so many amazing, incredible people, again, many of whom are on this call right now, brought good into my life. It's a beautiful, wonderful experience. And for all of you, if you have a dream, you know, the sacrifice that you will put forth to achieve your dream, it is a sacrifice, but it may very well, the benefits you get from going after your dream, almost, at least in my experience, certainly eclipses the sacrifices you might make. Follow your dreams.
I think you're absolutely right, Ed, as far as following our dreams. And you've obviously lived that out and proven that, you know, that anything is possible if you do follow your dreams. I have a question about your kind of continuing journey. In the book, you position wanting to be a writer and to write a book as sort of the thing that will change everything in your life. And I'm wondering, you know, has writing this book provided you with a sense of closure? Or do you feel like it's really just the first step in an ongoing journey?
I feel it is the first step in an ongoing journey. It has provided a great deal of closure. I've struggled, as I mentioned, with what many people would label mental health challenges. What I've found, and this is something I have in common with the many formerly and currently incarcerated persons whom Defy works with, what I found is that what really held me back from the time that I quit meth until pretty recently were not the disembodied voices that I hear. It wasn't the depression or the anxiety that I've grappled with and that I do grapple with. What held me back was the fact I tried to hide all that. I allowed the stigma of what people would call mental health challenges to prevent me from bringing my best self to the world. I lived a life where I had to hide I didn't have to, but I convinced myself, I basically lied to myself and told myself I have to hide a big part of who I was and who I am. I'm not yet where I need to be or where I want to be, because where I want to be is to inspire others the way so many incredible people inspired me by overcoming their obstacles, by sharing their stories, by taking their paths of incarceration or making mistakes or poor decisions, whatever they have done in the past and taken to transform it into something good to bring to the world around them. They inspire me. So the process of writing my book is my way of trying to do something to follow their footsteps.
Well, I'd love for you to read a passage. You got a passage that you've selected, right? I'd love for you to read a passage of the book that you selected. Absolutely,
yeah. This is a passage we're going to talk more about Defy. One of the major things I learned from Defy and in writing my book is that second chances benefit the receiver, someone like me, but second chances benefit the giver, meaning society, just as much, if not more. I am just one example of how a second chance has been extended and have used it to give something back to society. Many people have taken their second chances and given back at least as much as I, if not far more. One way I give back from the second chances I've received is as a writer. I put forth what I've learned from incarcerated persons. You're about to hear about one such incarcerated person who I met. His name is Two Jacks. His name in the book is Two Jacks. He taught me a new way to look at he taught me a new way to look at others, which led to me looking at myself in a new way, which led to me achieving my dream of becoming a writer. So this scene is when I'm incarcerated in San Francisco County Jail. Two Jacks becomes my jailhouse mentor. Shows me how to do push-ups with my head near the wall so no one can come along and kick me in the head. When another inmate steals my boots, I go to Two Jacks. He mediates their return. One afternoon, I'm lying on my bunk reading Bonfire of the Vanities. I'd asked my parents to mail it. I'd read it before, so it's easy to consume in the noise and distractions of jail. Another inmate storms up in rage. He rips open my locker and begins tearing through it. "You take my wave cap?" he snarls. A wave cap is like a bandana worn around the skull. "I'm white," I say, laughing as I set down my paperback. "We don't wear wave caps." I'm trying to diffuse the tension with a joke, but I'm not sure if the way I brought race into the equation is taking the proper tack. "I don't give a damn if you're white," he says, thrashing through my things. Two Jacks ambles over. "These are our lockers," he says, calm as the air before a hurricane. The implication is clear. "I don't give a damn," the other inmate mutters, but he makes a little show of straightening up my stuff before gently closing my locker door. "It was good," Two Jacks tells me later, "the way you handled that. I feel a strange sense of pride. For maybe the first time since I ran behind Omar through the tangled Bangkok streets, I'd done something well while not on drugs. In the big house, jail, we Caucasians are in the extreme minority. African Americans call us wood. It's not meant as an insult. The African Americans call each other OG for original gangster. The Latinos wear white plastic crucifixes and are organized, disciplined. They conduct group exercise sessions like a precision military unit. There aren't many Asians. One is a good cook, one plays basketball and cards, one stays pretty quiet and keeps to himself, mostly reading books. Two Jacks leads the midnight crew, to which I'm promoted by Sheriff's Deputy Horn. Our supervisor is Sheriff's Deputy Bruce. He brings food from the outside, steaks and lobsters sometimes. We function as his sous chefs and we get to eat. It's like the scene from Goodfellas where the gangsters feast in their specially outfitted prison cell. With the exception of Two Jacks and a couple others, most of us on the coveted midnight crew are Caucasian. Does this point to scientific evidence linking race to the ability to boil lobsters? No, it does not. As a Caucasian, I'm given unfair advantages on the outside of the jail walls, where I'm part of the majority. And I'm given unfair advantages on the inside, where I'm in the minority. As I get to know Two Jacks and later other incarcerated persons, I begin to understand. When I was 14 and drunk at my aunt's wedding, I made two mistakes. I began succumbing to alcoholism, which led to drug addiction. And I began to engage in criminal activity. In our society, being an underage drinker, a drug user, defines one as a criminal. For my mistakes, I am eventually punished with those 60 days in jail. It's a punishment I deserve, to be sure. Yet in our society, others make those same two mistakes, and they end up punished with far more time. Years, decades, lifetimes. My pathway was always going to be college, biotech career, home ownership. I had to work hard to get off that path into addiction and brief incarceration. In our society, others have to work just as hard as I did, much harder in many cases, to get off the path society puts on them into places like higher education and business ownership. Society gave me unfair advantages because of, let's face it, the color of my skin and my socioeconomic background. Now, these things sound obvious, but it's different when you live them, and I got a chance to live them.
You know, you have the benefit of sort of looking back now and saying, I kind of see things now a little bit more clearly. Can you tell us a little bit more about your mindset in the moment there? Because and you say it was this first time. What in that moment, is that when you said, "Oh, I did something well, and now I feel good about myself," or was that something you kind of came with the benefit of hindsight? What was that? What was going on? What was going through your mind during that time there, when all this was happening?
My mindset, it was a lot of fear, a lot of misery, a lot of depression, because I realized, and I did not have the meth when I was in jail to tamp down my feelings, which I had done for, at the time, 17 years or however long it was. So I was just starting to come to grips with the enormity of my poor decisions. I was in jail and there were no more drugs and now all of a sudden it's all at the surface. All the mistakes I've made, all the people I hurt, all the poor decisions. When Two Jacks and others who I met while incarcerated, when I found I could relate to them as human beings, when I found my own humanity reflected in them and theirs in me, I began to see a path out. I didn't know it right then at the time, but in jail, and I write about this in my book, jail was really where I started my career as being a writer. It's a convoluted story because I wrote a letter to the FBI because of what I mentioned before. I won't go into the whole story, but it's ironic that I found my freedom, which was the freedom to pursue my dream of becoming a writer, when I was in jail. And when I always thought that I wasn't a violent, I was never a violent criminal. And I always thought the reason was because I made better decisions. I thought, hey, I make better decisions. I don't commit violent crimes. That has nothing to do with it. When I met incarcerated persons, and especially later when I started working with and participating in Defy, I realized that what separates me from persons who serve stretches in prison, it's a difference of degree, not of kind. I met so many people who serve long stretches in prison. When I work with these individuals, and I'm not saying everyone who's in prison, I'm saying the individuals Defy works with and who others work with. If the people who have been convicted of violent crime and are serving long stretches, the ones I work with, if they'd been given the same opportunities as me, they would have turned out fine in many cases. And again, I'm not speaking for everyone who's incarcerated, but this has been my experience. And these are powerful, powerful experiences because they give me the confidence that I can bring something of value to the world, just like when I was a little kid reading my stories in front of the English class. And when I feel the confidence that I can bring something of value through Defy and through other socially conscious activities, that transforms into the confidence that I can pursue my dream and undertake something like publishing a book.
Yeah, it's great. It's so interesting to hear you talk about it like that, because that is often how that's the premise which Defy is built on, is these human interactions that help people see whether they are entrepreneurs in training, in participating from during incarceration, or the volunteers, that it's this degree of difference and that they have there's this shared humanity, and I think that is freeing both for volunteers and those who are incarcerated. So it's interesting for you to have that experience during your incarceration and sort of see that. Paul, a question about this about the passage?
Yeah, when I'm hearing this passage, Ed, it makes me think of things that are happening in our country today, literally today. We all know what's transpired in the last week or so. And I'm curious, as you have thought a lot about the injustices faced by people of color when it comes to treatment, as you just alluded to, in the criminal justice system, with the recent murder of George Floyd at the hands of police for apparently only trying to pass a counterfeit bill mention as a white man. Maybe drawing some lines between what we're seeing play out today, again, literally today and this week, and what's playing out on the inside as well as the outside. And I guess, if you have some thoughts on what is needed to restore fairness and reform a very broken system, what is that thing?
For me, the thing has been the human connection, the understanding that comes from working directly with persons whom, like me, have made mistakes and are turning their lives around, from working with persons who have careers in law enforcement, I've worked, I came from a place of being absolutely terrified of the FBI. I mean, the terror I felt of the Federal Bureau of Investigation cannot be described. I lived in this for years and years and years. Then I started actually meeting people in the FBI and working with them. And that transformed my whole perception. We see so many people who come into prisons and work with our EITs, our program participants in Defy, and their lives are transformed because we make that human connection. The great thing about entrepreneurism and employment, as Defy teaches, is that it gives a common language. We have incarcerated persons and we have business executives, and they want to interact. They want to help one another, but they don't always have that common language. And for Defy, the common language is entrepreneurism and employment. In other sectors of society, the language might be different, but the human connection remains the same. When we look behind those badges, when we look behind the bars, when we can see the humanity of persons, whether they wear the uniform of a police officer or wear the uniform of a prisoner, we can make some strong bridges of trust and understanding. An organization like the FBI is an organization, but the individuals who work within organizations, that's a different thing. And when we can connect on a human level, one person at a time, we can often transform societies. I'll give you a good example. If you read the biography or the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom, there's a great story about how when he's on Robben Island, where he's imprisoned for, I don't know, a decade or 2 decades. He was imprisoned 30 years total, but Robben Island for a part of that. One of the most cruel wardens in the entire South African system comes to Robben Island and treats Mandela and his colleagues very poorly. What happens is Mandela pursues legal means and things change. What happens at the end is this warden, his name is Badenhurst. Badenhurst is transferred off of Robben Island, and before he leaves, he approaches Mandela, extends his hand, shakes his hand and says, "Hey, Mr. Mandela, I wish you and yours good luck." For someone like Nelson Mandela in a place like South Africa and the time he was there, to have one of the cruelest wardens wish him good luck after that warden was was basically transferred from his job because of Mandela, that's a powerful, beautiful, wonderful thing. And if we can repeat that throughout our society and communities in ways small and large, we can form some solid connections and we can heal some very deep wounds.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. I think you got another passage you wanted to read?
Yes, thank you. This is, I won't give this too much introduction, but as I mentioned, I overcame a fear of public speaking. I did that mostly through a group called Toastmasters, which is an organization dedicated to public speaking. And this is another way of showing how when we form those connections, where they can lead to. And this is kind of how I got introduced to Defy Ventures. So I'm in Toastmasters. Stephanie Chow is a Toastmaster who leads all clubs from San Francisco to Palo Alto. Stephanie introduces me to Ernest Kirkwood, an incredible human being who served almost 3 decades in prison and now assists many others to successfully re-enter society following incarceration. Ernest speaks, and wisdom pours from his lips like rainwater down a mountain stream after a thunderstorm high at the summit above. Ernest enrolls me in starting a Toastmaster-style club in a women's unit of county jail. As I write this, we continue to convene the Breadwinners Club every Thursday. We brought in numerous guest speakers from Toastmasters clubs, public service agencies, and businesses. The women of Breadwinners deliver speeches of their own, of course. As they do, they learn how to better advocate for themselves and return to becoming productive members of society. Stephanie Chow also introduces me to someone who introduces me to Seth Sundberg. Seth played backup center to Shaquille O'Neal for the Los Angeles Lakers. Like the old saws about going from Park Avenue to the park bench, from Penn State to the state pen, Seth went from NBA hardwood to doing hard time. While serving 5 years for tax fraud, Seth worked in the prison kitchen. One day he hoisted a box of chicken from a storeroom shelf only to see it clearly labeled, "Not for human consumption." Soon after, he taught himself to make granola bars from items in the prison commissary. Upon release, he launched Prison Bars, a criminally delicious snack bar through the Defy Ventures program. Incarcerated persons often have entrepreneurial skills, which when applied to legitimate business ventures, allow them another avenue to successful reentry to society. For a returning citizen, meaning a person re-entering society following incarceration, owning a business can make more sense than being an employee. The theory being employers care about an applicant's past, yet when it comes to the person selling a product or providing a service, the customer cares more about who he or she is today. Imagine a woodcutter shouldering his axe and venturing into the forest, intending to fell a tree for lumber to build his family's home, firewood to warm it, and cook food over. The woodcutter happens upon a perfect specimen, a tall and mighty tree, yet instead of chopping it down, he exclaims, "This tree is not worth considering. 100 years ago, it was only a sapling." It's ridiculous, of course, but how many opportunities do we as a society deny our returning citizens based on their pasts? Like the long ago sapling offers value as the mighty tree it is today, so did those human beings who have made mistakes, paid their debts, and turned their lives around. I joined the Defy Ventures program, becoming an entrepreneur in training. As I work closely with returning citizens who deserve second chances, I believe I deserve a second chance too. I believe I can find a way to contribute to the world beyond a career in biotech.
Paul, do you have a question you want to start lead us off with?
Yeah, thanks. I love in the book, in this passage, and repeatedly, you express a lot of gratitude, Ed. And the line in the book where you say, you're talking about your mentor, Mike Gaudio, and expressing gratitude for his support. You say, there's a quote, "He believes in me. As a result, I further believe in myself." And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the power of belief and how we can continue to empower people, all of us who are chained in a sense by a lack of self-belief and feeling valueless. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize because I was supposed to have read that part of the passage, but I do talk about Mike Gaudio, who is my executive mentor and who helped me do talks for Google. And I went on to do talks for Cisco, LinkedIn, Slack, and others. And the reason that these firms hired me was because I brought value to them, yes, but much more so, these firms brought me in as a trainer because of Defy Ventures. So it speaks very highly to these firms, Cisco, LinkedIn, Google, Slack, and many others, that they would bring me in because of Defy. And it speaks very highly to Mike Gaudio, who remains my mentor today. So many incredible individuals like Mike empowered me. As one thing to understand about drug addiction is that drugs are not our problem. Drugs are our attempt at a solution. This is true for me and true for many other people who struggle with addiction. For me, my problem was me. I never pursued my dream of being a writer. And there were other problems too, but I used drugs as a solution. So when we take drugs away from an addicted person, we've taken away their solution. I used to tell myself time and time again, hey, when I'm ready for everything to be okay, I'll just quit doing drugs. I'll quit drugs tomorrow and things will be okay tomorrow. It made sense to me, and it's counterintuitive because you would think if you see somebody struggling with addiction that she or he quits drugs and the problem is gone. I, as an addicted person, thought that myself, but it's a false belief. Drugs are our solution. We quit drugs, we have no more solution. When we quit drugs as addicts, things get worse, at least at first, because we have nothing left to tamp down the problems. To get back to your question, Paul, so many incredible people believed in me. I saw people who I wanted to be like. And if you're looking to help someone who's struggling with addiction, understand that as addicted persons, we take advice from people who we want to be like. If you're happy, if you're pursuing a path of service, if you're bringing value to the world around you, usually these are the things we as addicted people want for ourselves too. We often don't want things like money or material possessions. A lot of times we've had those, but they didn't solve our problem. So if you're looking to empower someone, to help someone who's struggling with addiction, the first and best thing you can do, or at least one of the best things, is to help yourself. We often best help others when we help ourselves first. It's like that old cliche about being on the airplane when the cabin pressure drops and you put your own oxygen mask on first. So that's the first thing. If you're looking to be empowered, help yourself first, model the behavior that you wish to see in others, and then let go of your expectations. If you're looking to help someone who's struggling with addiction, It's fine to give the person food if you're being genuinely helpful. It's fine to give the person money. I mean, it's up to you. It's your decision whether you want to give someone money or send the person to rehab. But the important thing for you is to let go of your expectations when you seek to help someone who's struggling with addiction. I know I strayed a little bit away from the point of your question, Paul, but ultimately, when people who I wanted to be like, when people who served their communities, who raised their families, when people who treated others well, when they allowed me to be close to them, I started doing what they did. I started saying the things they said, meaning I would say positive things. I would say helpful things to others. And that made me believe in myself. They believed in me, I believed in myself, and I was able to stay the course and stay away from drugs and ultimately transform my life.
Well said. Thank you, brother.
That's great, Ed. So I love your metaphor about the woodcutter going in and giving up on the sapling because it's turned into a tree now. But, you know, I think that's very well put. And that's so much of what we try to do at Defy is to say, look, the past doesn't have to be prologue, right? You know, something happened when someone was 17. You know, they may not have had that fair first chance, and why are we writing them off now, you know, 20 years later when they've worked hard to become something different? So I really appreciated that piece. We've got a lot of great questions in the chat, so I'm actually not going to ask you another question. What I'd love to do is actually start letting some of our audience here ask some questions.
And then I just sort of had more of a personal question about sort of what were you able to sort of kick the habit, your addiction? Was there an inspiration or some, you know, an intervention? Just if you could just chat about that. Thank you.
Yeah, like the aha moment.
Yeah.
It was October 2007. I lived in this flop house hotel. There was a little sink in the hotel where I would ash my cigarettes, wash my clothes, and urinate. I mean, this was my life. I would shamble the sidewalks and lurk in doorways, having screaming matches with people who weren't even there. About the only clothes I owned was this filthy tuxedo, because I'd worked at all the strip clubs in the North Beach area of San Francisco. I shambled down to a hotel ballroom, to a fancy hotel. I stood at the threshold of a hotel ballroom wearing my filthy tuxedo. I was going to crash, and what happened was there was a wedding reception. I was going to crash the wedding reception, you know, get something to eat or something, you know, blend in my tuxedo and the state I was in. I stood at the threshold of that wedding reception, just like I stood at my aunt's wedding the first time I got drunk. And I realized that in the past few years, prior to October 2007, 5 weddings had taken place. 10 of my closest friends. One couple had asked me to be the best man. And Janet, do you know how many of those 5 weddings I showed up to? 0. That, when I realized how much I had hurt people, at some level, I realized how much I had hurt people around me, how much I had hurt myself. Add to that, the disembodied voices that I was hearing at the time, I considered them my spouse. That's how enmeshed I was in the world of my psychosis and my paranoia. I had left 10 of my closest friends. I had not shown up to their weddings, and I was married to the disembodied voice realm of conspiracy theories that I was in. From the very next day, I called my uncle the very next day, and I asked him. He invited me over to dinner, and he started to help me. Him and his wonderful family, my wonderful family. I started working very, very hard. I began going to 12-step meetings. I would go to 2, 3, 4, 5 12-step meetings a day. I started volunteering in my communities. I would volunteer every chance I got to give something to the world. And if I could put something good out there, good came back to me. I could go on, but I know there are other questions. It was just basically it's a point a lot of us get to, Janet, is our choices boil down to 3. We can get locked up, we can get covered up, like 6 feet of earth covered up, or we can get sobered up. You know, and for me, when my choices were down to those 3, then and only then was I willing to do the really hard work of turning my life around. And it was incredibly hard work. Today it is still in some ways, but fortunately so many beautiful, incredible people, and I keep saying it, but it's true, so many are on this call right now who've been there for me, who helped me, allow me to have the fortitude and the strength to do that hard work.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks, Janet. All right, we're gonna have Kara join us on the panel now.
Hello. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good,
So nice to see you.
good. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
So my question actually was very similar to the last one, was the aha moment. But also, one thing was, how did you, and you may have mentioned this already, I came on a little late. How did you deal with the physical needs of your body wanting the drugs? Like, did you just go through that when you went through prison, or like, how does somebody maintain that need? You know what I mean? Like, maybe it just varies with each person.
You pray.
Yeah.
Pray. And I say that only halfway facetiously.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
The number one thing is God. God,
Right.
or the universe, or the Great Spirit, or whatever we want to call her, or or him, or
Right.
it, whatever.
Right.
I found the most important thing in my life is a pursuit of a spiritual presence. I don't completely understand her, but I've been led to a search for spirituality. After I got clean, I started talking to rabbis, to Zen practitioners, to meditators, anybody who had a spiritual pursuit in their life, and I began learning from them. Ultimately, what I learned is that, like George Harrison said, George Harrison from the Beatles?
Yes. Yeah.
I love this quote. George Harrison says that everything can wait except the search for spiritual meaning. All right, I'm kind of paraphrasing because he says God, but to me, right. God and spiritual meaning are so similar as to be interchangeable. George Harrison says everything can wait except the search for spiritual meaning. Harrison was in the Beatles, considered by many the greatest rock and roll band in the history of music. George Harrison is saying even the heights of rock and roll stardom can wait, but that search for spiritual meaning cannot wait. So
right.
When it comes to physical cravings, when it comes to mental anguish, when it comes to depression, anxiety, schizophrenic symptoms, anything that you can imagine, when I put that spiritual search first, which is it's a lot easier to say than it is to do,
right.
that's my problems. And for each of us, spirituality is different. It's different for each and every one of us. For me, the key is to find our own individual brand of spirituality, pursue that. I mean, it could be gratitude. It doesn't have to be God or organized.
Right.
It could be gratitude. It could be service to others. It could be any number of things. When we pursue a spiritual pathway, man, that solves a lot of problems.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Hey, Ben, your shelter-in-place hairstyle is looking almost as luxurious as mine.
I know. It's hard to maintain, isn't it? It's hard to maintain. Listen, Ed, I've got a question for you. So, writing a book is a daunting prospect for anybody. How did you maintain your energy in the process of writing a book? And what would you like to write about next?
I maintain my energy, Ben, every night of the week. Every night of the week, there was something I wanted to do. There was a social event. There was some friends gathering. There was, a Netflix series. Every night of the week, there was something I wanted to do that I sacrificed so that I could get up the next morning before dawn, sit down at my keyboard and write. It was just, it was a matter of perseverance. It was a matter of very, very hard work. It was a matter of doing it every day for 10 years. Almost, and for the last 5 years, I was at it every day. Sometimes I would only write a sentence, but I would make sure I wrote something every day. Anything we do every day of our lives, we're going to get better at. We really can't not get better at something we do every day or 5 days a week or whatever it is. So, perseverance, following one's dreams. The other part of your question is, what do I want to write about next? Ben, I just want to keep bringing more value to the world. I want to share more lessons that incredible people have imparted to me. I want to turn the beautiful blessings that people have brought into my life and turn it into something good to others. Will that be a book or my newsletter or what? I'm not really sure at this point, but I'm going to keep writing, and I'm just going to keep passing along the message and searching for the spirit and doing the best I can. Thanks to people like you, Ben. You're one of the superstars in my life, my friend. You're one of the.
And you're one of mine, Ed. Thank you. Keep going.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ben. We got Lynn up next with her question.
There you go. So I want to say first to Ed and to Ben, don't talk about shelter-in-place hair, okay? And so Ed, first I want to congratulate you for your courage, for your book, for your inspiration. And what I'd like to hear a little bit about is, what did Defy Ventures mean, or what did it mean then, or what does it mean to you now? What does Defy Ventures mean to you?
In 2014, thank you so much. Thank you, Lynn. In 2014, I'd been clean off meth for 7 years. I was working in a biotech firm. They treated me very well, very nice people. And I was earning the equivalent of a 6-figure salary. Every day, I wanted to take my life. Every day, I would sit in that cubicle with these, surrounded by wonderful people, making a good living, being treated well, and I would fantasize about going home and putting my 357 in my mouth and yanking the trigger. You know, that was my life. The biotech firm shut its doors. They moved across the country. I decided not to go with them. And I thought, you know, I'm gonna start a nonprofit. I'm gonna keep kids off the streets. You know, it was a noble idea, but vague to the point of being unfeasible. Yet I decided that I'm going to leave that biotech behind, and I'm going to pursue a path of doing something good for my communities. Fast forward a little bit, that's where I found Defy. I decided to leave that life of biotech behind. And I'm mixing up the story a little bit because I had found self-defense, and I'd found Krav Maga a little bit sooner. But basically, despite the life of biotech and the material things it provided, it did not give me even a will to live. And the only reason I didn't take my life was because I had certain spiritual beliefs instilled in me about the next life, which I won't go into right now. The point is, Defy opened up that door for me. Defy gave me a chance to put my energy and my time and what I'd learned into something to do good to the world. Defy took me from that point of, start a nonprofit, keep kids off the streets, awesome idea, but it doesn't really translate into something practical. Defy gave me that inspiration and the ability to turn that into something practical. I've got a long ways to go, but thanks to so many wonderful people, I'm getting there more and more so every day. And Lynn, you are definitely one of those people. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. All right, Val, I think you're up.
So wonderful to see. Congratulations, and you're just inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you, Val.
My
Great to see
question
you.
has to do with inspiring other addicts, which you absolutely will do. But a lot of them wouldn't have the kind of inspiration you have to focus on a book and creativity and following your particular dream. A lot of them don't have anything like that. And I wondered what you could recommend to them who are searching for meaning and searching for a way to get through their recovery, contribute to society, and do something if they don't have talent and dreams like you did.
Yeah, thank you. And hi to Mario, by the way. I see Mario there. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Val. I would say if you're, read books, no matter who you are, if you can get access to a book. Incredible writers, Elizabeth Wurtzel springs to mind, Mary Carr, Anne Lamott. These are all writers who overcame addiction and went on to write books and inspire others. Dennis Johnson. If I can try and type them in the chat room, but be inspired, read the stories of other people. So many people, the one thing that we struggle with as addicted persons is we feel alone. We feel like no one understands us. No one's ever walked the road we've walked. No one can relate to our problems. That almost always isn't true. There are people whose minds have been where our minds are at now. And I'm talking when we're in addiction. So I would read what others have done, and you would be surprised. The only way I was able to become a writer who brings any value to the world was because, thanks to my wonderful parents, a love of reading was instilled in me at a very early age. I grew up with a lot of books in the house. All I do is read a lot of books. I learned to see how words should appear on the page. I learned to see how other people were expressing themselves. I never in my life took a class on writing. I mean, I might have here and there, but I was probably stoned or something during the class. But I never got a degree in writing. I never took a writing formal, workshop or anything like that. I just read a lot. So I think when it comes to writing, you'd be surprised how much value you can get just from reading books. And believe in yourself. As human beings, we all have wonderful skills. Not all of us, but I think at least all the ones I've met. And what I guess what I mean to say is, when we look within ourselves and find our true selves and our passion and our calling, often that gets us to the point where we can translate that into skills. And this is what I believe based on the writings and the work of many others and my own life.
So Al?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, you know what? I was made aware of this presentation by Ed. He sent me an email and said it was happening, and I felt it a privilege to be able to link on, right? I have an observation and an appreciation I'd like to share with Ed and for the rest of the participants. I met Ed through the Rhino Toastmasters here in San Francisco when I was trying to get some support to get a Toastmaster style program started in the San Francisco County Jail. And as a result, Ed showed up. And we started talking and we started planning, and we met every Thursday, and he was very, very instrumental in that program being successful in San Francisco County Jail. And that, everybody greatly appreciate that. On a personal note, I appreciate the way that he deals with people and the way that he deals with me. I've been out, when I met Ed, I've been out of prison around 5 years after serving a 30-year sentence on a life. And I'm used to dealing with men. I'm basically used to dealing with lifers and people that have been in prison and a certain personality, whatever. And Ed presented differently. And I come to learn that a person has a history and a person has a story, and whatever that person has to say should be shared if that person wanted to share it, you know. And I just want to say, hey, Ed, you've been a tremendous, tremendous help to me. You've helped me grow. You've helped the women in the Breadwinners program grow, and you are a tremendous guy. You're very deceptive. I must say that. Yeah, you know, for me, you're deceptive because I'm used to a certain, caliber person in dealing with certain things, and like, man, you have did a lot of growing, and you should be absolutely proud of your growth. And that's what I wanted to share with you and whoever's listening. Thank you.
That's beautiful, Ernest. That really means a lot. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Ernest. Appreciate that. Well, so we're actually just about at the end here. So really appreciate everybody joining us. This has been great, Ed. I've really enjoyed this. You know, and I appreciate everybody hopping on to be part of this, and Ed, you giving us at Defy Ventures a chance to host your launch. Paul, did you have any comments before we let Ed take us out?
Well, I just want to thank you, Ed, as well, for your inspiration and your deception, because you definitely are deceptive in the best way, no question about it. But maybe you want to share to folks where they can get your book, where they can read your blog, any way that the folks who haven't experienced it can experience it, because it is such an important book and people need to read it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to do that. Before I do that, I just want to say how much I appreciate my amazing sister. She, despite how poorly I treated her when I was an addict, my sister let me back into her life. She's an incredible woman. She's an amazing mother, and she's just a beautiful human being. I didn't get a chance to mention her until now, but I couldn't let that pass. I'm so grateful for my sister. She's just incredible. And now to answer your question, Paul, go to my website. I'm going to type in my website address into the chat. You can get a free PDF that I wrote, which is 10 suggestions for how to help a loved one in your life who may be in recovery from addiction. My website will also lead you to my Amazon page, and in fact, I'll type where you can get to my Amazon page directly. and it should be said that 10% of book profits are going to Defy Ventures. So you'll be supporting an amazing cause too. So I'll type in my website, or I'll just give it now too. It's www.edkressy.com, and I'll type in a link to my Amazon page. Thank you, Paul, for the opportunity to put that out there.
So this has been great. Thank you again to everybody. And Ed, any final words before we close out? Good.
Thanks to my parents. Thanks to my wonderful family. Thanks to everyone who's been here, who's here today, to everyone who's not here today. Thank you so much, Defy. And if you get a chance, please take a moment or so just to put your thoughts, your love, your positive energy to the people who are suffering, people who are struggling, persons who are incarcerated during these challenging times, persons who are on the outside and are struggling and suffering just as much, if not more so. Thoughts have power. Thoughts have energy. Thoughts can heal. Put your positive thoughts out there. Put your positive words out there, your energy. We'll all get through this. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Ed. Thank you, Paul. Thanks to Quan on our Defy staff behind the scenes for running our webinar today. It's great to hear from you all, see you in the chat. Really appreciate it. I hope everybody stays safe and has a great rest of your weekend. Good night, everyone.